All right, so step one, if you want to print out your 11 by 17, technically if you divide two 8.5 by 11s together, that will work. So you can kind of see here, like along this line, like that's where I combined the two. So there's like a piece of tape right here, but this line is where the 8.5 by 11s are split. So I already taped it down, but just to kind of show you the process here, like you can take your little painter's tape or your drafter's dot, rip off a big piece, and if you want, you can kind of put your tape on like your t-shirt or like a blanket or whatever, take a little bit of fabric off, do that a couple times, and that will help it not stick. But you should be good for now, just with the if you have painter's tape. So I'm taping the middle down just because that's where there's a seam right there, so I don't want it to kind of like shift on me. It's already taped down, and you can see that I've squared the drawing up to the table. So I have a little lip right here, and I've kind of just put my triangular scale up against it so that I know that my plan is square to the table. You also could use something like a triangle. If you don't want to just tape it, like you don't really want to tape it just to the edge of the table, because then you're not gonna, if you're trying to write something on the bottom, you're gonna have to like really, you want to give yourself a little bit of room. Anyway, if you can use a triangle to kind of hold that to the edge of the table, and you can kind of see that the property line is fairly square and the paper is fairly square. You're kind of more worried about the property line or the house, depending on how you're drafting, but just make a decision about how you're going to lay out your paper and be conscious of that and be purposeful. So you can see the same thing here is like there's this little lip, and you can just use your triangle to kind of slide it over and see that you're parallel. So remember that we always are checking to see if the drawing is scaled correctly. So you have 10 scale right here. This is our triangular ruler scale. You can see it says engineer. Mine's had some hard times. It's gotten chipped over time, but it's got character. So a way to check, you look for an existing dimension. There's a lot of existing dimensions. You have 40, 33, 18. These are all dimensions from the property line, which is this solid black line here. So this is the property line. These arrows point to the property line in the corners of the house. So all of these dimensions are the distance from the corner of the house to the property. So you can check those. Those are an uneven dimension. So I'm just going to check this dimension, the setback dimension, 10 feet here. It's 30 feet here. This is the side setback. This is the front setback. So this is how far away from the street you have to build the house. So the way I'm going to check is you're going to hold your scale up to it. I have my stuff over there, so I'm not using it the other way. Plus, it's better for the camera. But you can see from 10 to 11, that's 10 feet. So each one of these little lines represents a single foot. So we know that that's the right size. And I'm going to do the same here. So from 0 to 3, that represents 30. Each one of these ticks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 ticks to get to 1. It's 10 feet in real life, so all the way up to 30, that's 30 ticks on the scale, these little hatch marks, and that's 3. It's helpful, you can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 is a little bit longer. So you can see the 5 mark is a little bit a longer hash mark than the other ones that fall on the 10s. So we know that the scale is good. Those are kind of your first steps for figuring out, how do you get your survey on the sheet, on the tape down, and ready to start working on your base map. So next, start working on your base map. You can do it pretty quickly. Trace paper, you can see the light goes through it when you lay it down, you can kind of see what's going on. So just kind of measure out how much you need, give yourself a little bit of extra room. And I like to give myself a little bit of extra room on the side so you're not taping over the same spot over and over again. So that way you don't have to like separate the tape and like peel the tape and all that stuff. This stuff isn't super important how you tape it down, but it just kind of makes sense to me. It's like start with one corner over here, then you kind of start to like, you know, move it down, get it flat to the page, to the survey below, flat to the table so that there's not so much slack. So you got this side fairly tight and you're just gonna do the same to the other corners. So kind of work it like that. A lot of the times I like this trick. Throw that scale down, slide it over, get it flat. So you can see what a big difference it is. Like if it's really flat or if it's got a little bit of air underneath it, it's like you can't see as well. So get that thing flat. All right, we got flat trace paper. Now we're gonna work on our base map. Base map. So let's see, put that right there for you guys. So start with the corners. You have your little property corner right there. You can kind of just put a little dot, put a little dot, put a little dot, put a little dot. Most of the times you can assume that property lines are just that. They're lines. If it's an arc, you can usually tell, but you're pretty safe to go with your straight edge instead of an arc. So here I'm going to use my straight edge. I'm deciding to go with this triangle instead of the scale, just so I don't get the scale messed up. So technically property line is like long to short. So think of it as like SOS, and you can like hear those noises like so when you're drawing it, kind of keep that in mind. On the survey they have it shown as just a solid line, but we're going to give it this line type so it differentiates. And you can see that I'm kind of holding the pencil, the Sharpie away from me, and you're kind of just keeping it at the same angle and then dragging your hand. It's actually kind of nice to use this line type for the property. I'm aligning this up with the dot that I already made. I know that's where the corner is, so it's actually kind of nice to do the long dash, 2 short dashes so that you can pick your pen up. Sometimes when you're drawing, it's good to pick your pen up. It's good to like take a little break, and it's okay to have breaks in your lines. So you can see here, I'm kind of just holding the straight edge, and it's okay to kind of like just, lean over it. Maybe you check to see how it feels before you tape your plan down. See what it feels like to kind of hunch over it and like make sure that you can kind of access it comfortably. Because if you think about it, like this is the basis for the rest of your work. So if you can just like leave this base map here, that way you don't have to rip it up a bunch of times. You can kind of just like rock with it. If you want to be like really technical here, you could get a pencil or something like that, and you could even draw a little circle using your circle template if you wanted to get really precise with your drafting. So it's always kind of up to you, like how technical do you want to be when you're drafting ideas. Right now, since this is the base map, I'm gonna be technical because you can kind of be loosey-goose when you start to draw the ideas, you know, your diagrams and when you start to draw your diagrams, you can be more loose about the shape. But here, maybe you want to be more technical just so it looks clean and crisp. And I think that can just kind of go a long way. And, you know, if you start from the beginning, making it look clean and crisp, then you'll kind of like inspire yourself. You'll want to like make it look neat and tidy, and, you know, don't rush yourself. There's a learning curve to doing this and putting it all together, but all of these tools that we have are your friend. So here's the parallel glider PG. It's got these little black O-rings on the part here that swivels. So if you hold it by the O-rings, you can see that it kind of moves. This piece kind of rotates around and it sits in here. So if you just use one finger to move this, you can't really move it left and right. You can only move it up and down. So that's what those metal rings are for. And this comes really in handy because if you have it laid out to be parallel and along one line, if you just slide it down, then it continues to be parallel. So when you're drafting things, if you have the parallel glider, it can kind of help expedite that process. So let's see. I think for the house, I'm going to go with this permanent marker Sharpie, this fine point. I went with the fat Sharpie for the property line. So when I'm drafting, if you're right-handed, start from the left and go to the right, and then pull, you know, start from the top of the page and move down so that you're pulling away from your line and you're not drawing lines here and then moving forward and drawing a line there and moving forward. I can show you what that looks like and like the negative effects. So if you are drawing a bunch of parallel lines and you're moving through it, that wasn't that dramatic of an effect, but maybe you're using a thicker Sharpie, you know, you can kind of see that it might start to drag the ink away. That actually didn't drag, but I guess that's just because Sharpies it's not a problem with those. But anyway, I start with the top and work my way down. So the way I kind of draw lines is I do a little hit, little dot, 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 and then I drag it. So I go hit, drag, hit. So the form is you're kind of doing like hit, drag, hit. So you kind of start, you can look at a line, maybe you know where something starts, you can look at that little line, so you can put your pencil there and you can say hit. So you saw I did pretty hard. So you go hit, drag, and then you hit to meet that little line. So, that example didn't really look that good. Let's try that again. Hope I didn't mess up the thing. So, hit, drag, hit. Looks better. So don't look at this guy. This is good. You see, it's kind of dramatic right here, but you can kind of see that there's thicker edges. And when you kind of start to draft and put those things together, it looks kind of cool because it gives you a little bit more, you know, a little bit more depth on the corners where the lines meet, because you have a little bit more action going on there. So I'm showing you this on the white paper here just so you can see like this kind of like hit, drag, hit, what that method looks like. And you can see like having this a little bit over, it's okay. Like if these are a little bit over like that, it's all good. It doesn't really matter. And like It still looks clean and crisp, even if you have these lines not perfectly meeting at a sharp point. So for the house, we're gonna do that same hit, drag, hit. Parallel glider, lining up with the top. You're looking at what's underneath, what's on the survey, and what you want to bring to your base map. So lining it up again. Remember, I'm working right to left, so I'm not dragging through my wet ink. All right. Okay, so there's the house. You can kind of see what that looks like. If you can lift up the paper a little bit, you can kind of see what it looks like. Back down, now you can see through it. So just thinking about like the hierarchy of things, it's like, okay, property line is thick. We started with the property line, then house is like one of the more important things on the property. So we're gonna go with that. And I think we're going to just make a decision as a group here that we're gonna do the porch as the same line weight as the house, because we believe that the porch is kind of part of the house. You know, it's up to you if you want to differentiate a little bit whether the porch is part of the house, but for now, see, got a little bit of a smudge. That'll happen, no worries. So for now, we're just gonna go with it. We're gonna say that the porch is part of the house, and we're gonna draw it at the same line weight. So once again, you can either push or pull. Really, it doesn't necessarily matter like which way you're going. Whatever way feels comfortable for you. Like, do you want to pull from left to right? Or do you want to pull from right to left? Or do you want to push, or do you want to pull? So I think pulling towards me is easier. I don't think you should push like this way with it. If you're going to pull, then you could go like that. You always kind of want to have it away. But I think pulling from left to right and then pulling from top down is easiest. I didn't draw these steps yet, even though I already did these angles, because I want to know where they end. I don't want them to just kind of be like floating. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that line. And now I have a point where I know the steps can stop. So it's easier to connect those lines, if that makes sense to anybody. We're going to just kind of draw that as a unit. Maybe those steps will be a little bit different. Okay, so next, what else do we know that we need? We know that we need trees. We'll go back to the big Sharpie for the trees. So you can either kind of draw in, you know, the shapes of the trees like this, which is completely fine. You can just trace the object of the tree, you know, the symbol on there. Or you can kind of even look at the tree. You know that it's not necessarily a circle, but if you like pick this size, you can kind of see that all the trees are like the same. And you can use these like crosshairs on here. So all of these circles have one line here and one line there and one line here and one line there. So you can see here's that line, that line. So they all kind of line up in a way. It's kind of like the crosshairs of a scope for a telescope or like a rifle. So if you want, you could say to yourself, all right, this circle is about the same size, even though it's like a little cloudy symbol. So you could kind of imagine the center of this crosshair and just put a dot in the middle. So that way you have a pretty good idea that you're hitting the mark of the tree right on the center. I'm not going to do that for every one of them just for the sake of time. And so we're just going to kind of continue to draw and trace these shapes. Kind of giving it a little bit of character. It's not like a true circle, and it's a little bit squiggly. I feel like that is just a decision I'm making because I want them to kind of look different than the technical straight lines of the property. You can see that I'm even picking up the pen while I draw that circle, giving my hand a little break. All right, so now we're looking back through. Got all the trees. Don't get it twisted. This is a 4. That relates to some survey information. Don't worry about that. So if you want, you can use the parallel glider and kind of slide it up and down. But also, if you have like a little triangle, that's kind of nimble to just be like, you know, rotating it all around, and you can really draft quickly with a little triangle like that. All right, next I'm gonna go with this little 5 micron, number 5, not to be confused with Mambo number 5. Often there'll be a number on the lid. This one done popped off, so this should have a 05 and this is a 005, so you can see the number, you can see the details, and you can see the width of the tip there. So I'm putting the parallel glider away. I'm just gonna start to get this going really quickly. This was working a second ago. Might be a little low here. So look, hit, push, hit. It also really helps to have some good lighting. I'm doing this at night. I think probably would be nicer during the day, but I'm not even gonna worry about that, just so it doesn't smudge for the sake of time. Same thing here. We're kind of just like pulling some of these lines from the survey to the base map. And this is a pretty important part of like the whole process for design. Like every job you have, there's gonna be a base map needed. And that's kind of like when you start working in a firm, that might be one of your like early jobs, is to help create a base map, and that actually will help you kind of learn, you know, what are the elements of a survey, what does like a good base map look like, and you're gonna hand that off to your boss, and they're gonna take it to their first meeting or their first site visit, and that's kind of like the first first step of the project. So the more you do it, the easier it gets. I'm going with the same big boy Sharpie for the frame, shed. I'm just going freehand there, sake of time. Call me a wild man. What do we want to do for our... I might even just... No, I don't know that that's going to show up. I was thinking that maybe to do something in pencil, but I don't think that that's going to show up that well. Here's a Sharpie. So yeah, probably want to draw stuff on your base map in pen so that it's so that it shows up. I got this big intensity fine point permanent marker. So it's pretty thick. I'm wondering if it's like too thick. I think if I do like that, it'll be okay. But the contours are important, so don't skimp on them. All right, so you can see here, you have all these numbers. 911, never forget, 910, 909, 908, 76, 5, 4. And they exist again over here. So that's just the same line, but labeled in 2 different points. And you can see just at a glance how 910 is a lot darker. I mean, it's kind of like hard to even see the other one. So excuse me while I, you know, just kind of like figure my way how to find these, but I'm essentially just going to trace over this. It doesn't have to be perfect, just a little dash. All right. Got the same pin. Cool. Putting that pin away. We'll go back to the Reggae Sharpie fine tip, ultra fine point. So it's kind of hard to find the smaller ones, but if you look closely, you can see it. Or what you can do is have the survey open in front of you on the computer, like I do. You can make sure that you have a pretty good understanding of where the contours are at. I also think it's just, it can be nice to have that survey open just in general. So this actually kind of goes through the house, and like you can see it through the house on the survey, but typically it can just end into the house. Like that's how it technically would be drawn. So I'm not going to draw it through the house, because when you're proposing grading, the contour can die into an item. Like it has to, it just has to pick up on the other side. So you can make assumptions that like this contour here, 906, starts at the property line here, probably extends out a little bit. All of them do. They go forever until they circle back on themselves. But this contour starts here, snakes around, dies into the corner. Like I said on the survey, it keeps going through. I'm not showing that, but then it picks up on the other side. So everything for this 906 contour dies into this, and this is essentially serving as like a wall. Like the foundation of the house is a wall. And I think that'll make a little bit more sense when we look at how contours are graded into a wall. But for now, we're just going to show these on the base map. And once again, I'm kind of just looking at the survey, since it's kind of hard to see with the trace paper. And this one kind of goes to the carport there. There's also a little bit of shadow going on because I have the I have it lit from two different angles. All right, almost missed it, trying to rush. Drew it into the shadow a little bit. And then we got this one, which circles on itself. So that either means it's like a mound or a depression. I'm assuming that it's probably a mound. And then you got some stuff going on back here. I actually think you have the next, so this is 10, 11, 12, 13. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I think this is 15 right here. So we're gonna call this 915. I'm gonna put a little label. It continues up into the corner. You can kind of see, so it's 11, 12, 13, no, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And this is also 12. So I'm gonna put 9, 12. You can label them all if you want. It doesn't necessarily matter when it's this small of a job, and you can just kind of know, and you'll figure it out. So for now, let's just do it. 910, 909, 908, 907, 906, 905, 904, dinosaur. 904 goes pretty much right at the edge of the property. So that's kind of like right where the driveway ends. And then 903 is kind of happening over here. So see how it's kind of nice to have some extra room. So look, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 9, 14, and then there's 9, 15. Nothing going on over here. Ooh. Look at this. How many of you guys saw this when I said I missed a tree? All right. We're not sure if we're gonna keep the fence. That's what this X, beep, beep, boop, this X line here. Use my pointer. It's this. So I'm not sure if that stays in our design. I'm gonna just leave it off for now. And I really think that, you know, this is a pretty good start for your base map. I think what I'm gonna do is pull up the presentation that says elements of a base map just to make sure I've got them all. Here we go. Okay, so on your base map, you need north arrow, scale, written, and graphic. Title block, which is name, sheet name, designer name, date, and it says 11 by 17 sheet figure, but that's all good. Okay, so yeah, north arrow. So you're gonna want to go back to the original survey since it's not on this sheet because it's the way it printed out. You know what I'm saying? So typically, like if this was the survey and you were looking at this sheet, then the survey kind of looks like this. Typically the survey sheet will have north straight up, parallel with the edge. And right now this is kind of the shape of the property. So you can kind of use some critical thinking and just do this little exercise and say, okay, the sheet was this way, but I turned it like that. So now this is square to my desk. So that means north is like that. So you can essentially kind of just imagine, you know, your north arrow facing that way. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it. It doesn't necessarily matter the where you put all this stuff, just like kind of make some decisions about it. So you can see pages like that, north is like this. Doesn't have to be fancy, and you can just put an in for north. I'm kind of just using like the bottom of the sheet as like a straight line, just to keep it neat and tidy. Why not? Elements of a base map, north arrow, check, going down the list. Scale, you can just write scale 1 inch equals 10 feet. And then you're gonna draw a scale. So sometimes people get hung up on this. Give it a goog. Just type in graphic scale, 10 scale. See what that looks like. And, you know, some people will draw these differently, but typical way that looks nice. I think I'll do this again for you guys on this white paper, so it's probably easier to see. But get your 10 scale, find the 10, and you can kind of just start with like a straight line. It's going to go 10, 20, 50, 100. No, that's wrong. Yes. Okay, so you can go boop to 10. You can go boop to 20. And like really, that's enough. If you don't want to be super fancy with it, you could just do that. Or you could make another little mark that is at the 5, and then make another little mark that's at essentially 2.5. You can kind of just eye that out. So you can do that, and then you can draw another line on top of it. You can draw 2 lines essentially. So you can draw like a line here, and then a line here. And since you put those little ticks, you know where the line's gonna go. You know, this isn't looking that great, but this is kind of what a scale will look like. Kind of checker pattern it. So that's the shape. That's just kind of like the style. And you can always go back and be like, oh, I forgot what these numbers are. So you know that from here to here is 10. So you put a 10. From here to here is 20. So you put a 20. From here to here. From here to halfway to 10, 2 of these little things, that's a 5. And then that's a 0. And there's your scale. 1 inch equals 10 feet. I'm not going to do that on here just because I just did it for y'all. Written graphic title block, name, sheet name. I'll go ahead and write mine. A N D R S O N. You can kind of see when I'm lettering, I'm kind of making like these fat capital letters, and you kind of make them like long. We'll talk about lettering a little bit, but you can just practice lettering. If you have like mathematical grid paper, that can help to practice your letters. Anderson Price, that's my name. Sheet name, we're calling this base map. So designer, that's me. You could just say, you could write designer, like designer. If you have a client, you could put client. Let's go with Cookie Monster. So the client's Cookie Monster, the designer is me, and the date. What's today's date? 2/29. Two 2/29, 25. You can even put, I don't know, you don't need to put date. People know what a date is. And that kind of checks all the boxes. You know, the base map's kind of up to you, like what you want to include. Just remember that the base map is always it's got less information than the survey below. All right. Cool. So that's kind of what your base map looks like. Looking pretty good. You could go ahead and add some other labels on there if you want, but you kind of know what all this stuff is. House, shed, porch, carport, drive, way. Yeah, that's pretty good. So you can kind of get rid of that survey now if you want. It doesn't really matter. You'll just kind of be seeing through it when you start drafting your other plans. So I left 2 corners of that survey taped down because it's going right back where this bad boy was. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna try. You can see I used the wrong tape initially. That's why it's tough here. Painter tape's better. Yeah, we're gonna get this we're gonna get this plan up, and then I think the white, the gray below could work. But I think having a white page below is always gonna make the design pop out. So let's see. This just gets put to the side. So let's see what it looks like with the white, like the gray underneath. I think that looks okay. It depends on what color your table is, but we'll just kind of see here what it looks like with white underneath instead of just on the gray. But I think it's always nice to, if you're photographing something and then adding that to the computer to upload as a PDF, like you can kind of just see it looks a little bit cleaner with the white underneath it. I've been sketching on these papers, so I'm gonna leave them to the side, but once again,